We really are. I mean, why do they call it scholarship? I mean, why do you always have to have a ship? It's because of maritime admiralty law. You have citizenship, sportsmanship, companionship. It's always a ship. It has to do with maritime admiralty, the law of water. That's why the Vatican is called the Holy See. Wake up and find out how the world really works. It's an extraordinary story of betrayal of the human race. When you find out how far gone the human race really is and how the entire human family has been manipulated, exploited, and dumbed down so that today the entire world is crawling on its knees to celebrities. My God, what a mess we present to our Creator. If there is a God who created us, he must be shaking his head, looking at us, 30-year-olds on skateboards and sending grown men out to kill and war, and we're calling them our boys. I mean, that's always been disgusting to me, or refer to the military as our boys. Now, if you go out to a Little League game when you got 10 and 12-year-olds playing ball, that's our boys. But those are not boys in military. Those are men carrying guns.
Let me interject another question for you. Who answers to who, the Pope or the Queen?
Oh, I think that's pretty easy to prove. The Queen is subservient to the papacy, always. The Queen has always been subservient to the papacy because the Queen rules by divine right. Well, divine implies God has ordained her to be queen. Or any king, prince, or royalty in Europe, all will tell you that they rule by divine right. The divine right of kings. Well, who speaks for God in Europe if it isn't the Pope? And therefore, we have the term, all roads lead to Rome. So I don't care which one of the royal families of Europe, and they're all over Europe. They're like ants, like cockroaches. They're everywhere. But all royalty in Europe get their royalty from the papacy, from the Pope. And any time the Pope decides that you have no longer are needed, your divine right is no longer out there. You no longer have a divine right. And usually you'll be whacked like Princess Di. They'll just whack you and get rid of you. So when you understand the entire world that you live in operates like the mafia, that's all that the governments are as gangs. We got the Mexican gangs, the black gangs, the white gangs, and they're just gangs. We got the Chinese gang, and they're against the Russian gang. The Russian gang are against the American gang, and it just depends on in the prison planet which one of the gangs is the strongest.
Along with that, can you give us a 10-minute dissertation on the maritime admiralty, the birth certificate, and the number on the Social Security card?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people have already heard me talking about that. I was talking about that some 30 years ago, and now it's finally out there, and people are finally understanding what I was saying. That there are only two kinds of law on the earth. There are only two things. There's actually only two things on the earth. There's only land and water. So there's two kinds of law, the law of the land and the law of water. People don't know that, but they use the term, they will say things like, well, that's the law of the land. Never realizing you're making a distinction. Why? The law of the land as opposed to the law of the sea. And so the law of water is the law of money. That's why we say money goes through your hands like water. No, water is a word, is a word and a term which is used in maritime admiralty. That's why you have an admiral in the Navy. Why do you have a Navy? Because the body of a church is called a nave. The body of any church is called a nave. That's why you have a Navy. And the admiral, you need to look up the word admiral, see what it means and why he's an admiral of the Navy. And my God, and then when you see the Navy who lives on ships, like I said, scholarship and relationship and all kind and citizenship. Your body, it breaks down this way. There are two things which are required for life: electricity and water. Those are the two things that you're required to have life: is electricity and water. So your body is a biological battery, and that's what causes your nerves to move. Your nerves cause the muscles to move. So you are a biological battery, and every now and then you get wore out, and you're just dead. You have to go to sleep to build up the battery. Well, the same thing is true in the human body that it is in a battery. You know, you say, well, I'm just dead today. Well, but why? Because you have no energy. And so the body is a biological battery, and we're told we're almost 90% water. So we're water and a battery, and we can reproduce life, and the human spirit is able to embody itself in a body and live because of those two things, electricity and water. Now, when you begin to look at how commerce works, first of all, you need to look up in a dictionary, a law dictionary, go to a library and do something you've never done before, read a book. Go to a library and get a law dictionary. Bouvier's law dictionary is the best of all. A lot of people think Black's law dictionary, but no, Bouvier is the better dictionary for law. And look up the word commerce, and it will tell you sex is commerce. And then look up the word Congress, because we're always talking about congressmen and Congress. Well, the word Congress is sex. So both Congress and commerce, the law books will tell you, is sex. Sex reproduces humans. That's why it's commerce. And it's a Congress. You have Cores and Congress. So when you see that the whole system of commerce is based on sexual reproduction and it's producing products, and you are a maritime admiralty product because of water, because water represents money, and that's what you are. You're a walking human resource that makes money for corporations. It's a huge story. I mean, it would take us about 3 hours of me just sitting here going through this whole subject of how banks work. I mean, I've talked about it so many times. Where do you find a bank? Banks on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. What does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency, because your money is a liquid asset. It's a current. And you can see the ebb and flow of the currency, through the international banks. But your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange. The United States federal government is a privately owned corporation. It's in default right now, but it's a privately owned corporation. It's a company. Well, hell, anybody knows that if you have a corporation, anybody can have a corporation. Anybody. But if you have a corporation, the first thing you have to have of any company or corporation is you have to have a president. And you have to have a vice president and a secretary treasurer. That's just corporate law. Well, today we got a president and a vice president, secretary treasurer, and people think he's the president of America. No, he's the president of the United States. Look it up in a dictionary, a law dictionary. United States is a privately owned company. It's a corporation. And all corporations have to have a president. So he's not the president of America. He's the president of a corporation which was incorporated in the 1860s. It's a privately owned company. My God, wake up. It's just a corporation. But then again, all governments are corporations. And when you find out all governments are in business. And so, many years ago, there was a movie called Network, in which Ned Beatty was the head of a network, and he was telling the old man who was the newsman on the network, explaining how life is. You need to go back and watch that movie Network, if you can find it. Because what was said in that movie was the absolute bottom line truth. And Ned Beatty says in there, as the head of the network, he's telling the old man who was the newscaster, he said, the whole world is a business. Governments are corporations. They are owned by private individuals, governments. And all governments are corporations. All corporations have to have presidents, vice presidents, And all human beings on the earth are owned by their respective corporations. That's why you have to have a birth certificate, because it's a certificate of ownership on the stock market in New York. It's a hell of a story. Once you start studying something and do it for 50 years, you will finally wake up one day and find out that the entire planet is going down a mountain with no brakes, and the people have no idea in the world what's going on. Nobody's ever told them anything. They don't learn anything. None of this has anything to do with basketball or football. And so who the hell needs it? I mean, who needs it? Because it doesn't have anything to do with sports. Until, of course, you've got to go to court. Now, if you're going to go to court, now you need to call an attorney. Now you're going to pay for your ignorance. Now you're going to have to pay someone who has studied and who does know how the law works. And so you're going to have to pay them. And if they don't do the job right, you're really going to pay. You're going to jail. And why is
you are so
jail?
right, my friend.
Well, why are you going to jail? It's because your body is a battery. And when you go into court, somebody is going to pay. So we're talking about commerce, the law of water. That's why we say when you go to court, you're in hot water. You're going to have to pay your debt to society. You're going to have to pay because you're in hot water. And if you don't pay when you're in hot water, somebody is going to have to bail you out because your ship is sinking. Your citizenship is in trouble. They're going to have to bail you out. And so if you don't get bailed out, your biological battery is going to be put in a cell. That's what we call batteries, a cell. So once you understand how the entire world works, and it'll only take you 50 years of study, while everybody else is out on skateboards and having fun at the football games, and then one day after doing all that study, you find out that the entire world doesn't know what the hell you're talking about. It has got nothing to do with football, so who needs it? I'm just amazed at where the world is going, where we've been, where we are, and I know where we're going. And it's not pretty. What's coming next year, you don't want to know. But that was even shown in the old movies of Dracula. What was it, Dracula, who sucks blood from everybody, and he was a demonic, depraved, blood-sucking demon. But what was the one thing that scared him? And one thing that frightened him more than anything is the sun coming up. If the sun came up and it was shining light on him, he was dead. And so that's the story. So yeah. So open up the lights of the world and start showing the light to people what's really going on. That's what these Draculas and cockroaches are really frightened of. Is for the human race to finally wake up and see what the name of the tune has always been. From day one, for thousands of years, this is the way the trick has always worked. And it's always been in the hands of the masters who own the human race, and the people just crawl on their knees to their movie stars and to their holy men, never realizing for a moment this is a trick. This is a real solid trick, and it works. So you can't. I just saw it a long time ago.
Let me get off. Let me ask the question I had because I kind of went off on a rant and rave there. But let me get
so do I. So do I.
My question is, it has to do with Freemasonry because it's along my bloodlines and I know my grandfather and my uncles, they were all Navy. My uncle right now is a 33rd degree Freemason of the Blue Lodge, and my last name is Duncan in the Book of the Scottish Rite.
That's right. That's right.
So these are all studious things that I figured out on my own. I was never told this, and you were a help with that. But what I really wanted to say is, I know there's all these different degrees of Freemasonry according to Manly P. Hall. I have a huge book sitting in front of me of Manly P. Hall, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, and I kind of wanted to get your opinion, because I know you've met with Dave personally. your opinion on the symbol that he has on his left hand, on the upper part of his hand, which is a double-headed eagle, I believe, or phoenix, and it looks to me like, isn't that the representation of a certain degree of Freemasonry? And is it true that Masonry is, let's see, there's 33 degrees that are attainable on this planet, and there are 180 degrees attainable by man, and 180 that are extraterrestrial, which means there's 360 degrees of Freemasonry, according to Manly P. Hall.
Well, first of all, that double-headed eagle, the double-headed phoenix, is actually the double-headed eagle. That's a very, very ancient symbol that's been used by many countries and many cultures long before Freemasonry was ever born. It goes all the way back to the old Hittites. I think they were about the first ones that had a double-headed eagle, was the ancient Hittites. And from then, we see it in Sumeria, Babylonia, Phoenicia, Canaan, in the Middle East, all over the Middle East. But it's a very ancient symbol, and it's taken on different meanings for different cultures. So I don't put much emphasis or concern about that particular symbol. But in relation to Freemasonry, that's a very big subject because American Freemasons gave us America. They gave us the what little bit of modicum of freedom we actually had after the Revolutionary War in the late 1700s with the Revolutionary War. That was all part of a Masonic movement. And so Freemasons are responsible for giving us what freedom we have today. Also, our major religions, especially the Protestant religion, Protestant Christianity and Judaism, are Masonic institutions, period.
Whoa.
Well,
That's
let me.
very interesting. I hate to interrupt. I'm going to get off the line and let you guys finish. My grandmother, a full-blood Irish woman, Catholic, married my grandfather, who was the Duncan, the James Arthur Duncan of all names, right? They go back to the Masonry and the bloodlines. He was half Native American, half Scotch, and was Protestant, and my grandmother's whole family stopped talking to her when she married him.
Yeah, well, I can imagine.
Thank you so much, Jordan. I hate to cut this short. I got to go, but I appreciate everything. Thank you.
No, that's quite all right. Nice talking to you. We'll talk again.
Okay.
So anyway, what we call
Jordan,
Christianity. Yes.
Go ahead.
David, did you have something?
I will in a minute.
Okay. What we call today Christianity is in fact Freemasonry. Period. End of sentence. And so the whole concept of Christianity is a Masonic philosophy. So when I hear people talking about how the evil Freemasons have infiltrated the church, no. The Freemasons gave you the church. The very concept of church and Christianity is a Freemasonic symbol. It's a Freemasonic order. It came out of Europe. And ultimately it can go back to the Crusades of the Holy Roman Empire. It goes all the way back to the Knights Templars, which was when you're breaking down all of this stuff of religion, you need to understand the Vatican is not a religious institution. It is a military institution. This is why they have missions. We have out west in America, you have what is called Catholic missions. And these are beautiful so-called churches. No, they are fortresses, because the very word mission in a law dictionary, go to a library and get a law dictionary, look up the word mission. It's a military term. And so the Roman Empire under the Caesars were not there when they talked about God. When the ancient Caesars of Rome talked about God, they're talking about themselves. They are God. You don't think so? Mess with them. And so they didn't care about, they had all of these other imaginary things going on in heaven and the Roman theology, but their gods were human. Caesar was God. And so it's passed down to us today that which we call the Christian religion is actually it's a construct of ancient Masonic orders coming out of ancient Egypt, coming out of ancient Rome, ancient Greece. There were secret societies or fraternal orders that we refer to loosely, quasi-Masonic orders that were in ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, that morphed into and eventually became known as Christianity and Judaism and Islam. All three are called the people of the book. All three are the product of secret societies of Freemasonry. Period. All three are. I mean, that's why it's so overwhelming when you finally sit down and spend years looking at this, tracing back where these Masonic orders come from, where the churches have come from, where the concept of the synagogue comes from. Why is it called a synagogue? Most people have no idea. They've never asked that question. I asked it when I was 12 years old. I didn't get any answers until I was old enough to start thinking for myself and doing my own research, and then I began to see what the real name of the tune was and how this stuff is being played. So I'm just telling you, there's a world of history that you have never been told. And it's about time, I think it's an ideal time has come, to start looking at the real story of where Christianity really came from and where Islam actually started. That what we call our religions in the Western world today are actually Freemasonry. So I don't have anything against good Freemasons. Like any other normal human organization, there is good and bad in everything. My mother taught me a long time ago as a child that people are either good or bad, not because of who they are or what church they go to or what they believe. They're just good or bad. And it's true. And I have learned that the people who are good are just good. Now, I don't care if they're Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses or Catholics or atheists. It doesn't matter. If they're good people, they're just good people. If they're bad, it doesn't matter what they belong to. They're just plain bad. And so I don't care about what people's lifestyles are and who they are, what they believe. I don't care about that. I want to know, who are they really in real life? Are they good and decent people or aren't they? So I don't have anything. What I have always been complaining about in the line of Freemasonry is the British Grand Lodge and all of the machinations going on in Europe behind the scenes with the papacy and the Pope anointing a royalty and kings to do the work of Rome, to devastate and rip off and rape the planet for Caesar of Rome. But the American Freemasonry was quite a bit different from that, in that they decided they didn't want to be under that Roman yoke any longer. And that's just the way the world works, is fraternal orders. It's just the way things are. Man has always operated the same way. So we had Masonic orders that found in America. We have Masonic orders that run banks. But I don't have anything against American Freemasonry. I think we have in America because of Freemasonry. But if you want to get into the darkness of Freemasonry, go back to Europe, go back to Rome, go back to the Vatican and the Knights Templars that came out of the Vatican. That's where the real dark stuff really is. And if you want to get into the subject of religion, that's a whole nother story. Where did our churches come from? I mean, people go to something called a church today, and they have no idea in the world where the word church comes from. If Christians knew where the word church comes from, they would not be going to a church. But, nobody reads anyway, and besides, understanding the etymology of the word church has nothing to do with football or sports or earning a living, so who needs it? So, when you start looking at the church, looking at the words, looking at the symbols in a church, begin to look at the logos of the corporations, how business is run, one day it will finally dawn on you the entire world is one operation. It's one big manipulating exploiting system. And if you don't understand how this stuff started 10,000 years ago, you're never going to figure out where it's going. I've been watching this stuff for 50 years, and I'm telling you, it's scary, because I know where we're going with this. I know the whole planet is being taken over in a corporate takeover where the human race is going to be nothing more than cannon fodder. All we're going to do, all we humans are going to be, is human resources. Your babies are, your body is a corporation. That's why when you die, you're a corpse, because you're a corporation, and corporations are business. That's why, if I see you out with a gangster, I said, that's bad business hanging around. That's bad company. What do you mean company? Well, you're hanging around with bad company, and you say to me, well, that's none of your business. Business, company, that's the way the world works. The world is a business. It's a corporation. So I'm just saying, education, this kind of education is nowhere. You don't find it anymore. It's gone. And I'm too old to do much with it anymore. I've spent my whole life getting it, and now at 70 years old, I'm just too tired to do anything with it anymore. I've been struggling, uphill all my life trying to get people to listen. I've come to the point now where, in all honesty, without being discouraging, with all honesty, I don't care if people listen to me anymore or not. It just doesn't matter. I spent 50 years doing what I'm doing. I know what I know. And I've already had too many experiences in life that tell me something really dark is happening on the earth. The whole human race is involved in something we have no idea in the world how bad it really is. And I don't believe, it's just my personal opinion, but I don't believe the human race is going to be able to extricate itself from what's coming on, what's coming down the line. I don't think we're going to be able to save the human race. I don't think it's going to happen. I've said so many times, the light at the end of the tunnel is a train coming. Because in order to change something on the earth, you're going to have to change the way people think. And the problem is, 90% of the people on the earth don't think at all, much less changing the way they think. So I just am of the opinion that we are in a very big mess, and it's because of the lack of education. That's why the Bible says, my people are dying from a lack of knowledge. And there's another, probably most incredible scripture I've ever read, is that one that says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And I'm thinking, my God, what a profound statement. Where there is no vision, the people perish. That's precisely where we are today. The earth today has no vision. People don't see anything. They look with their eyes, but do not see. They listen with their ears, but do not hear, and with the heart do not get the sense of it. So I'm telling you, that's what's going on the earth today. People are not seeing. They have no vision. So therefore, now their only concern is with their new cars, their basketball, their job, but they have no spiritual vision to see who we are as a human creatures, where we're going on the planet, and what's going to happen to us very soon. The people know now, they've got a gut feeling something is bad is going on, but they have no vision, no understanding, and no one to teach them. Because true spirituality is not for the masses. We, as a design creature, whoever created us with inborn natural tendencies to just feed your belly and sex, drugs, rock and roll, feed your belly, and take care of yourself and entertain yourself until the day you die. And so I don't think there's ever going to be a time when spirituality, it never has been, it's not now, and I don't think there will ever be a time when spirituality will finally become a common occurrence among mankind. I don't think it's ever happened. I don't think it ever will happen. I think this is on an individual basis. You have to decide if you've had enough of this crap. If you haven't had enough yet, and you still want to go to the movies, or still want to watch basketball, and you still want to be well thought of by your community, because all children do. Children want to be well thought of by their fellow students. So that's what keeps all of humanity going in the same direction, is everybody wants to be accepted by everybody else. We don't want to be standing out by ourselves. So unless you want to stand out by yourself and be your own thinking, do your own thinking, and go within yourself and connect to that divine presence in you that the Native Americans knew how to do, we don't. As Western man, we have no idea in the world what you're talking about. But unless you can do that, and that's on an individual basis, that's a personal thing, and I can tell you that the masses of the human world are never going to buy into that, ever. And so we got stories in the Bible that tell you that. Classic example in the Bible in the New Testament is where Pontius Pilate brings Jesus out to the crowds of the city, and he brings out a guy named Barabbas. Barabbas was a known criminal who had a long criminal record. And the story in the Bible says that Pontius Pilate, the governor at that time, brings out Barabbas before the town and brings out Jesus. And he says to the town, now I can let one of the two of these prisoners go. So I want to know from you, the city, which one do you want? Do you want Jesus, who is the truth and the light, or do you want Barabbas, who everybody knows is a murdering criminal? Which one do you want? And it says, the Bible says, and with one voice, the town shouted, give us Barabbas. Well, that's a metaphor.